And with that, we are officially started. So welcome everybody to the November edition of the Global Chambers Authors Series. Thank you all for being here today with us. We have three fabulous authors who we'll introduce in just a couple of minutes. I'm Lainey Denslow. I think I know almost everybody on the call. A couple of people I'm getting to meet for the first time. I'm happy to be the moderator, and I want to launch us by seeing if our leader of our tribe, our CEO of the Global Chamber, Mr. Brunke, would like to say a few words of welcome before we roll forward.
Hey, thank you, Lainey. I appreciate it. You woke me up when I started to hear you started to frame that up, so that was good. Hey, I just love these conversations. They're so inspiring. I was telling someone the other day how I was walking through Palo Alto a few months ago, walking the dog, kind of getting inspired by the vibe of the place. And I was listening, I remember it was Susan Schultz, and there were some other people talking about their book and what they had done. And it really just reverberated through my head and my heart. And it really got me thinking, wow, there's some ideas here that I want to bring together. And that's really a lot, I'm sure, of why Gloria brings us together like this and had the idea of bringing us together, because every single author that's spoken has an inspiring story, has something that we can pull from for our own lives, for our own dreams around putting books together. And I'm just so thankful for all of you for inspiring Cesar and I for putting our book together. And I'm sure we're all going to be inspired in multiple different ways by the three authors today, plus one, Lainey, who as the moderator is like the best moderator and facilitator ever. I dream every morning about being as good as Lainey. And so in addition to all her skills about understanding Americans, she's just awesome. So thank you for bringing us together today, and really looking forward to learning more.
Thanks, Doug. No pressure now, right? And I want to make another introduction. We are lucky that our Vice President of International Business Services, Cesar, is here. So Cesar, I know we can't see you, but I know you're here. Do you want to say a couple words before we launch forward? No, because Cesar is probably off taking care of 12 other things, so we'll catch him later, but we all owe him thanks for getting us on today. And with that, I want to move us forward so we can hear from our three authors. But I also want to pick up in a way of what Doug was talking about and explain that I'm not going to introduce our three authors, Tony, Joe, Gloria, with their formal bios from you can read them on the Global Chamber website, you can read them on LinkedIn. I think you all can believe without any other research that these are well-educated, extremely successful professionals. But I want you to step back and think about what it means to be an author. And I think Doug alluded to that in talking about ideas that are shared. Being an author is an act of faith. It is a leap of faith. It is a courageous, brave act. And you may not have ever thought about it this way. But for those of you who are on the call who are authors, I see a lot of authors here on the call. And for our three people featured today, it's an act of bravery to decide that you have a vision, that you have a message, that there's something that you think out of your experience and wisdom is important to be shared, and to do the hard work of putting together a book, sending it out into the world, having no idea who it's going to touch, but acting on a strong belief that there are people out there who can benefit from what you've spent your life learning. And for that, I think we can thank all of you, because without your courage, we wouldn't have the opportunity to learn from you. So that's my request is that you all think about these authors, not just as professionals, but as courageous people sharing with the world at large. And having said all of that, I'd like to explain a little bit about what we're going to do. So we have 3 authors who are featured today: Gloria Petersen, Tony Kitchens, and Joe Bockerstette. Did I get that right, Joe?
Very nice.
Thank you. We're going to ask them to tell us why they wrote their book, who they were thinking about as the reader, and what's one message that they have. And then we'll open it up to some questions from the audience. I know we have authors on this, and everybody who's an author, could you kind of wave your hand? So everybody knows. Look, at almost everybody on this call is an author. And I know Dwayne, who can't wave his hand because it's just his picture, is an author too. There he is, waving. And we know that Doug and Cesar, who are planning to be an author. So this is a great chance for the people who haven't yet gotten to the point of committing to being an author to find out how you can make that step. So we're going to ask each author to tell us what they wrote, why they wrote, what they hope the message is. We'll give them each a chance to talk. We'll take some questions from the audience. And then I have a whole other list of questions to ask our authors. So off we go. And we're going to begin with Joe, who is the author of multiple books. For now, we are going to feature his most recent book. I have to look at the full title, Red Cloud Road: How Strategic Process Management Drives Competitive Advantage. It's a big title with a big message. And Joe also, among our authors, is the one who's been a co-author in his experience, and that's a different thing, and I hope you'll tell us a little bit about how that works. So Joe, the floor is yours. And I'd ask everybody else to mute themselves, including me, while you're talking.
So Lainey, thank you very much. Good morning to all of you. So I've written 3 books. Dating back to the early 90s was my first. The second one was around 2015, and then the most recent was just this past year. And in each case, I've collaborated with others, and I find that to be, incredibly fun and useful and satisfying. And I wouldn't do a book by myself, I think. So I'll just embellish a little bit on Red Cloud Road. So my business documents workflow in generally pretty large organizations through what we call process maps, which become playbooks of how you run the business. And it was founded by a fellow named Don James in '93, and Don invented this approach that we use, which is very unique and very effective, and really has grown organically over now almost 30 years. And so when COVID hit, our business went from multiple projects to 0 in a day, and we thought, this would be a great time to compile the information we have available and produce a book. And so there were 3 of us who worked on the book. We assigned different chapters to different members. Each of us has our own specialty of expertise and area of concentration. And so the chapters were drafted differently by different people, and then we edited and traded back and forth, and ultimately came to what we ended up publishing. What was so valuable about that approach is it really forces the group to come together on common understandings, common terminology, sorting out differences in the way we think about things. And one of my favorite quotes around writing is, and I don't remember who originally said it, but you don't realize what you don't know about a topic until you sit down to write a book about it, right? And for us, it was very true, right? We had I won't say a lot of disagreements, but a lot of different understandings about a piece of content that we wanted to deliver. And it forced us to become like-minded around that topic and to make sure we were expressing what we all collaboratively agreed to that we wanted to express. And so the other thing is it really enormously benefited our business, because coming out of COVID, our product was much more crisp, our messaging was much more clear, our understanding of exactly what added value to clients was much cleaner, and the business has benefited greatly from that sort of enhancement of sort of intellectual understanding of our business and our value proposition to our clients and how we go to market and how we message it. And so taking that, so it was about a 6-month exercise, I guess, and taking that time to step out of the rat race and really think about what we did and how to articulate and communicate it has really, really benefited us greatly since then. And the book has been a pretty keen part of our business since, and it's always sort of fun and intimidating to hear a prospect say, I read the book, now I want to talk about chapter 6, item 4. And I've actually had that happen, right? And so it's like, okay, well, I better pull the book out and see what chapter 6, item 4 is so we can talk about it. And so it kind of sets a framework for understanding of this body of work and how we will interact and relate with others. So in a nutshell, that's my experience with this book, at least.
I co-authored a book also, and I can share and echo about how exchanging the chapters and making sure that there is a similar vocabulary, a similar attitude is really quite a good experience, a way of editing your book as you're going along. I know you presented this sort of as something you did because you had time.
Yes.
But as you were writing, did you think about it as a piece for potential customers, or what was the vision of who was going to take this book and use it?
Well, so I'll give you 2 elements to that. We really began the idea as a tribute to Don James, the founder of the business. So much of the content of the book was originated with Don. And Don is not the world's greatest writer. Don is probably the world's greatest diagrammer. He's an electrical engineer who determined ways to map workflow using electrical diagrams. Excuse me. And so it really was, and Don's semi-retired now, so it was kind of a tribute to his career and what he, the sort of the thought leadership he was able to add to the profession. We always had in mind that this book would be targeted to the senior executive of businesses, right, who is looking for a different and better way to improve performance. And so the VP of product development, sales, the COO, those were always the targets of the book. It's an interesting challenge, though, because it's very dense material. And we really struggle greatly with level of detail relative to volume of the book, right? I always wanted a book around 300 pages, no more than that. 300 is a lot. But even then, we had to make choices around the level of detail in order to make that book not a 1,000-page reference book that you couldn't work through. So clients who read it generally acknowledge it's pretty dense material, but it's very I've heard it say it's very approachable, and so you do understand the message that was intended to be conveyed, but you got to want to do this to have a reason to want to read it.
Well, it sounds like you created a special book for people who really needed the information and were likely to be willing to invest their time to gather what you shared with them.
I will say one more thing, if I may. We
Sure.
really felt that the industry was missing this material, right? That we actually had information and knowledge that would benefit the area greatly, and there was nothing available that I felt that was even close to it. So there was a little bit of an idea that this is a service to the community, that says there's this other body of work out there that would add value to what's commonly known, and we wanted to get it out into the community to make it available.
And that's exactly what happened when they quote page and chapter,
Right.
and then you know you really did touch people. So congratulations on that part.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
And we'll come back to you with more questions, of course, but now we're going to go to Gloria. And Doug sort of highlighted that this whole author series was Gloria's idea. And I can tell you that 3 years ago, she was talking to me about, Lainey, I think there's some other authors in the chamber. It would be great, don't you think, if we could get them together? And who knew that would turn into, now we've been doing this for 2 years. I think, Dwayne, you were part of the original planning group too. And who knew there would be so many authors within the global tribe? So that is really a special experience for all of us. And now to have you be here as a featured author, because it's something new. What you don't know about Gloria is that she actually has written a 4-book series, a professional development series. And now with her 5th book that she's going to talk about today, called Mindfulness and Health Watch, she's going in a new direction. So what's it like to not only write multiple books, but suddenly take us in a new direction? So Gloria, the floor is yours.
Thank you. And I think to back up a little bit, I think Doug was the most surprised to find out how many authors he had in his tribe. Right, Doug? And they're coming out of the woodwork as we go along.
I think we started with around 20 and we're somewhere around 75 now. So it's really.
See, it's another dimension. That's what it's all about. Thank you. For over 30 years, I have done seminars and training in the professional development realm. And I've authored 4 books, which are these books right here. Okay. And I did those in 2011, 12, and 2013. So that's been pretty much my history. But, you know, as time goes on, we change. We start to look at life a little differently. And I have certainly had my share of obstacles, disappointments, and just unfortunate situations that I've had to really get through and still keep myself up. So one of the things I would be doing and was introduced to was journaling. To back up a minute, Lainey mentioned my 5th book. It was supposed to be The Power of Grit, How to Always Land on Your Feet No Matter What. I am working on that book. I've been working on it for about 4 or 5 years, have about 200 pages into it, but for some reason I couldn't seem to get it done. And I think the obstacle to not getting it done, because there needed to be a transitional type book. And that is a journal. It just kind of came to me one day that, no, you need to do this. It's like that self-talk we sometimes do within ourselves, and we need to listen to the voice when it talks to us. I've learned that, and it's a good thing to do. And I thought, oh, wait a minute, maybe I'm going to back up a minute, because I have journaled. I have journaled to get beyond some bad experiences, bad moments, but I've also journaled to try to keep myself focused on the positive, to sometimes say, I'm okay, and not to fall into that trap of woe with me, the blame game, you know, and do all those things that are easy for us to do. So journaling has helped me a lot. Now, here's the thing with the journaling. I would actually get my children and grandchildren a journal as part of the Christmas present every year. They're still trying to figure out why I'm doing that. And this past year, I actually went to Barnes & Noble. I literally sat on the floor. And the thing is, if you want to get a journal with a pretty cover and a lot of blank pages, they're over there. If you want to get a gratitude type diary, which is more of a workbook type thing, which gets you engaged, well, they're over there. And it's like, no, wait a minute. And then I would go through all of them, and none of them had all the pieces that I felt were important elements in a journal. So then I sat there and I did what we entrepreneurs do. We write it. or we invent it. That's what entrepreneurs do. If they can't find what they want out there, they either write it or they create it. And that's what I decided to do. So this journal is like a transitional piece. And then once it's done, and it will be done for 2023, it's actually done. It's just in the printing process and all that. Then I'll go back to the other book and probably get that done sometime next year. But the other thing about the journal is what I found myself doing, because my son helped me buy a Fitbit watch. How many of you have a Fitbit watch? How many of you are watching your steps? Raise your hand if you're watching your steps, if you're getting engaged in that. Well, I found this little thing here. Oh my God, it makes me walk more steps because I'll look at it at the end of the day and thought, no, wait a minute. So I could do more. So I would go to my journal, and there's no spot in a journal to record. Of course, there's an app in here that records, but I want to see it in writing. I don't know how many of you are like that. I just want to see it in writing. So I would go to the margin of my journal, and I put, okay, this is how many steps I did today. This is my average heart rate, et cetera, et cetera. And I'd write it in the margin. I thought, now, wait a minute. Why can't there be a journal that just has a spot for you to fill that in? So this journal is going to have a little box. Lainey said it looked like a Post-it note when she saw a sample of it. And it's going to let you write in what your steps were, because what it will do is it will challenge you. And one of the reasons I found that so important is at one point this summer, when I was getting a full physical done, I found out that I had some issues with the oxygen flow to the brain. I found out that I had a stroke that I did not know I had. There was a stroke scar in my brain, and it caused some memory loss. I was shocked. I thought, when did that happen? But then when we did a little history, I think I do know when that happened. I just didn't know it. And then I found out I had a blood flow to my heart issue. I thought, no, wait a minute. I thought I was this really healthy person. But yet I was having some breathing issues that I was trying to ignore. Well, this little guy here really helps you stay focused. After about 3 months of doing my watch, my Fitbit thing, and I went back to the cardiologist, I indeed had improved. I had indeed made strides. So I want my journal to encourage people to get on a healthier health track. So I called it a health watch, and put some pieces in there. And again, thank you, Lainey, because Lainey brought up a couple things that I should add, and I added them. I'm not going to tell you what they are, but she made a couple suggestions that I thought were really, really good. So I think this journal is my way of telling people, if your career isn't working, if something in your life is just not working, no matter what you do or how hard you try, maybe you have to step back. Maybe journaling is the answer, because if you can journal, and when I did my journal, I came up with 5 aspects of journaling. So that's why I call it mindfulness, because mindfulness is made up of intention, gratitude, affirmations, visualizations, kindness, wisdom, and spirituality. So often a journal will say, this is my gratitude diary, but you don't find journals with all these elements that are dedicated to all these pieces. And I think they all have a place in our daily life as we think about things. And I wanted to get people to capture that. So let's go back to the basics. Let's get in tune with ourselves. Let's get ourselves where it needs to be from a health point of view, physically, and from a mental point of view, with these 7 aspects that I just shared with you. Then I think you're going to find that your career is going to work. Your life is going to work better. Family, all of that is going to start to work better. And that's my goal for you. A while back, Lon Sofko had a session on innovation. And if you can go back to our library, to the YouTube Global Chamber Library, and find it, he really talks a lot about the importance of innovation in our life. And certainly I consider this part of that. And his session actually gave me my push to move forward in going in a little different direction, because I think about these things for people, but I decided to do it. So again, just to kind of wrap up my session, I'm just going to say, that's what entrepreneurs do when they can't find what they're looking for. Like I couldn't find the perfect journal. Guess what? You create it. That's mine. Thank you, Len.
That is terrific, and really, I think, energizing for all of us to hear and to be reminded. If we can't find it, maybe it's time that we make it and create it.
Mhm.
And Gloria, do you have a vision of who's going to go to Barnes and Noble and find your book, or?
Of course, everybody.
All right, I guess that means that we all get one as a holiday gift when it comes out. So we'll look forward to that.
Mhm.
Okay, we'll come back to you with some more questions, but we're going to shift over to Tony now. Tony Kitchens, who is here with his first book, and I haven't ever asked him if this is the first of many or if this is it. But Tony, will you tell us about why you wrote it, who you think your reader is, what's the message? Your book is called The Gift of Pain: How Mental Toughness is the Secret to the Life of Success. So Tony, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Lainey, and welcome to all of the chamber members and other guests. I think it's important to point out something on the cover, and I'll skip forward to who the book is for. So if you look at the book cover, it's the gift of pain. But if you just change your perspective on pain and turn it on its head, it can become a gift. So that's what the premise of the book is. And I wrote the book during COVID when the world was shut down. And for the first time in 20-something, almost 30 years, I had the opportunity to sit down and just to be still. I've been an entrepreneur since I was 20 years old. I'm 51 now. So it was about 29 years at that point. And the thing about entrepreneurship, and when you're trying to strive for success, and when things are going good, time moves by so quickly. Things are moving at 100 miles an hour. And even though you feel like you're in the moment, when you look back in retrospect, there are a lot of moments that I realized I missed. So when I had the opportunity to sit down and write my book, I didn't have anybody in mind. I had no idea or no thoughts about selling even one copy. I didn't care if people had good opinions or bad opinions about it, because I really sat down and I really wanted to take time and just kind of reflect and say, how have I gotten through some of the things I've gotten through in life? And I literally just sat outside. We lived in Puerto Rico at the time. I sat outside in the back patio with a laptop, and I left my phone inside the house, and I was able to see the ocean. It wasn't far from our home. And I sat there every single day and just typed. There was no structure. I didn't have any format. I didn't know how many chapters or pages I wanted to write. It was literally just a dump of emotions. And it was very, very, very therapeutic. Because again, I had achieved a lot of the goals that I had in life, mostly all of the goals, to be honest. But there is an emptiness there when you achieve most of what you've been shooting for since I was a kid. It's, again, time moves by so fast. And I just sat there and I just went through every experience that I can remember. And I didn't want to talk about these great successful moments and the things that you can purchase. Nobody cares about that. There aren't any lessons in that. I really want to dig into the things that I had to overcome. And in the moment, it wasn't a situation where I said, let me just be strong. In the moment, it was really about the fact that I had so many responsibilities at the same time that I could not just stop and mourn the loss of my mom or mourn the loss of my dad or any of those things. You still have bills to pay. I still had employees calling me every single day. We had vendors calling, business partners. You can't stop in those moments. But what you realize in retrospect is you don't really have time to heal, and you don't really have time to even celebrate the successes, to be honest with you. You just keep moving. You keep putting one foot forward in front of the next. And one day you have to stop and look back. And that's what I did with the book. And it became a memoir because it was just really about my life. I think that everyone that's viewing this, anyone who reads, I know, Lainey, you read some pages already. I sent you a copy of it. And everyone who's read it said it's just a conversation between me and them. That's what it's like, because that's what it was when I wrote it. And the expectations as I got toward a finished product my expectations were still modest in terms of sales and things of that nature. I really wasn't concerned. I was really proud of stopping and looking at life through a different lens at that point. And I'll tell you, it was one of the best experiences I ever had. It was so rewarding in terms of looking back and realizing all the people's lives that I touched, all the people who touched my life. And again, it put perspective on business and entrepreneurship, because you're constantly at 100 miles an hour. And I told people at that point, if you gave me $50 million, I would not go back, not even 1 year, to the life that I had at that point. Because what I realized was, again, even though I was present for a lot of things, I really wasn't as present as I thought I was. My wife and I just celebrated our anniversary a couple of weeks ago, and we were sitting here not too far from Dana's house. As a matter of fact, a Raised on a River restaurant, and we were just talking, and she said, "You are finally present in a way that you haven't been in years." And this is not like me sitting with her and my son at home with the cell phone or anything like that. It's just, I was there and I thought that I was present. I was involved in the conversation, but there's something about success. There's something about entrepreneurship where you can never turn it off. In your mind, no matter what you're doing, there's a projection, there's a forecast, there's this level of responsibility. What are your clients doing? Because you're awake, but they're asleep. They're across the world. Now you're asleep and they're awake. So do you really sleep? So how can you really, really, really be present? I'm still trying to learn that today, but I've come so far along from where I used to be. So I think that anyone who reads it, I promise you'll see yourself. At some point in time, through my timeline, you'll see yourself, whether it's business, personal life, loss, success. It's just really a story about, again, as the title states, just an average person who's done a lot of things. And the weight that we carry weight from everybody else. And at a certain point, you have to sit down and take that weight off so that you can start being more of who you are. But that's what I have to share about the book.
Wow, Tony, thank you so much. That was really a fascinating story. And I think coming after Gloria talking about the benefits of journaling, in a way, it's as though you took journaling to a whole new level of really sharing at least a personal journal of helping you think through all the parts of your life and now sharing with other people so they could learn from you. It's really impressive. Let's just say.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks for being willing
Yeah.
to share. And really, it goes back to what I talked about at the beginning, the courage of an author to
Yeah.
go out there and share something that's personal, whether, Joe, it's really how you think some things should be done in businesses that people may not be aware of, or Gloria with giving people a platform to record, or Tony sharing so deeply and encouraging other people to look inside and think about similar things for themselves. It's a gift that you all give to people, and it's really impressive. So thank you for sharing so much. I'm going to let all three of you catch your breath for half a second. And I'm going to ask, we have a few minutes to ask if any of you who are with us have questions that you want to ask any of our three authors. Elise, I can see you waving your hand. So why don't you lead us off? Go ahead.
Okay, I'm super impressed, Tony, and I just wrote in a little chat note to everyone, like, as a 4-time entrepreneur, I really get you. I actually almost had a nervous breakdown after my 3rd business, where I went from 4 people to 80 in less than a year. I totally get what you're saying. Now, if it's not possible for you to move overseas, which it probably isn't at this point, because I was overseas and did find a life-work balance. I'd have to say that you probably know this, so this is more of a statement than a question, that living here in the United States, it will take a reboot of goals and values. And I have opted for downsizing and being less financially wealthy. And yet I'm very rich, even in my smaller abode and my downsized lifestyle, because I have opted for a work-life balance, as I think you have as well, with that, maybe without sacrificing, but tell us a little bit more if you don't mind.
That's a great point, Elise. And I moved to Puerto Rico in June of 2013. My mom is from Puerto Rico, and we used to go there every other summer. We would come to Georgia one summer to visit my father's side of the family, and then to PR to visit my mom's side. And I was super excited to move there because I wanted my only son to be able to grow up from living in Chicago, to grow up with warm winters and, you know, celebrating Christmas with no snow and just a safe environment. And what I found is there really, for me, it never was a work-life balance, because running the company was not, the first goal was not financial. It was something that I love to do. And I'm on my 5th company at this point. I have 2 companies now. And the 2 companies that I run now will be nothing like the previous companies, because yes, the amount of stress that you have with employees and payroll and everything else that you have, it's overbearing. I mean, just on a personal note, I used to own a boat, a big boat back in Puerto Rico, and we had a captain, a full-time captain. And he used to call me up and say, hey, we need to get out on the water. He could tell in my voice the level of stress that I had without me even saying I was stressed out. Because again, I didn't feel like I had the stress. I knew I had responsibilities, but other people saw what I had on me as opposed to me looking at it that way. It was just the life of an entrepreneur. And even then, I couldn't go out and enjoy the fruits of my success.
Exactly.
I had to wait for holidays to go out on the ocean and play, so to speak, because during the day, there was always a fire to put out with the client. There was always a fire to put out at the office. So there was never work-life balance, even though we lived in one of the calmest, most peaceful places you can ever live. You have that responsibility there, and it just never goes away. And yes, I share your advice about being out of the States, because in the States, the first thing people ask you when they meet you is, what do you do for a living?
What do you do?
Yeah.
Exactly.
In Puerto Rico,
who are you?
Yeah, in 9 years, nobody ever asked me what I did for a living. Not one person. When they greet you, they say, how's your family? How are you doing?
Yeah,
Exactly.
And that's it. Yeah.
So thank you both. I'm going to ask to pause here because I see that Charles has his hand up and we haven't heard from him yet so far today. So Charles, do you want to take a second and introduce yourself? Tell us if you have a book or thinking about writing a book. And then I know you have a question or a comment that you started out with.
Thank you, Lainey. It's a pleasure to be here. I have a book that I'm writing. I've been doing it for a couple of years now. And the title of the book is Enabling Buying in a World of Selling.
Oh, yes.
So the idea is to change the perception from selling people to helping buyers buy. The question I have is to all the authors around publishing. You know, I think there's various phases to writing a book. So writing obviously is the heavy lifting, but I think I could go down many paths. I've spoken to some people who've gone with marquee publishers, names. Some people have said to me they've done self-publishing on Amazon. And I'd love to just hear, what was that journey like for you? Was it difficult? Did you do it on your own? Did you get help? Were there any pieces of advice you could give me and other people who haven't published yet, what that publishing experience was like?
I want to tell you, thank you, Charles, because that was the first question I was going to ask all three authors after we got done with this Q&A, and you just teed it up perfectly. So can we start with Joe, and then we'll go to Gloria, and then we'll come back to Tony, because Joe, I think you've done both the big name publisher and the self-publishing. So could you talk a little bit about that?
Sorry about that. Yeah. So the very first book I wrote was with McGraw-Hill. We signed a contract. It was a big thing, and was distributed through Barnes and Noble and Borders at the time, and that sort of avenue. And what's good about that, of course, is you've got professional resources to help polish it up and add graphics and do things that really improve the quality, the professionalism of the book. The second book we self-published, and it was very, very simple, very clean. There wasn't any graphics. It was just something that the other co-author and I wanted to do for the community. It was around angel investing and how to get money from angel investors. And then the last one, we went through Amazon. We hired a ghostwriter editor who had the ability to take our manuscript, smooth it out would be the words I would use. She wasn't a technical writer, but she definitely made it more accessible to the reader. And she knew how to take it to Amazon and get it published, print on demand publishing, which the great thing about that is you have the freedom 100% to do what you want to do, be who you want to be, and produce what you want to produce. So but the maybe the give up is you don't have the distribution. If your goal is to sell a lot of books and make a lot of money, you're probably in the wrong business. So that's I don't know many authors that made a lot of money selling books, but I'm certainly not one of them. So okay, that's my 2 cents.
That's such a good point, though. Let's pause here for a second, Joe, because I think many of us have talked about a book as really a business card, a calling card. It lends you some credibility as an expert, but I don't think any of us are in the Tom Clancy sort of level of book distribution and sales. So I think that's an important thing to think about is this something that you are hoping to sell a bazillion copies of? Or is this something that you recognize as adds to your credibility as an expert and a good calling card? So thanks for, Joe, did you start to say something else?
Well, I'll just add one more thing. I think you write a book because you have something that you want to say and that you want the world to hear, right? And that's your reason, your purpose. And all of us have a unique knowledge, skills, capability, something that we can offer the world. And you want to put it out in the book so the world gets the benefit of that point of view, that particular knowledge, that expertise, that skill, whatever it may be. And you have to be at peace with however it ends up, frankly, I think, right? It's, so. Thank you, muted, Lainey.
Yeah.
3 years on Zoom, and I still have to be reminded.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I think, Gloria, I want to go to you. I know you've self-published and you've had some adventures with that. And are you going that same route with the journal and with the Grit book?
Well, there's 3 ways to publish. Through a traditional publisher, which we've already heard about that. There's the hybrid publisher, who does all the work for you, basically. And then there's the on-demand. So there's really kind of 3 categories. My first set of books, which I put up, these were hybrid published. And that's because as an author, I didn't know what I was doing. I had no idea what to do, never authored, never taken a class on it, nothing. So I actually hired a hybrid publisher to do these way back then. And then when I was doing the Grit book, I thought I'm probably going to go back to the hybrid publishing with that. However, with the journal, it was a little different. I did reach out to Christopher Herring and Everett O'Keefe. They are both hybrid publishers. I believe Elise used Christopher Herring, so she can do a lot of yay with him. She had great success with him. And I did reach out to them, and in talking to both of them, it's just expense-wise, it wasn't where I wanted to go, because I wanted to keep this journal as a very, very low cost, number one. And number two, I want it out pretty fast. And hybrid publishing takes more time. There's much more involved in getting that really great finished product. And I think my grit book falls into that category. But for the journal, 2023 is around the corner. I don't have time. So then I reached out to Dwayne Canova and to Todd Cornell, who did the on-demand publishing, and got insights from them as to how I can do this to get a halfway decent piece out, but at the lowest possible cost, and within the really confined time frame that I have. And I've gone with somebody that Todd Cornell used. And so far, I'm very happy with them. Manuscript's pretty done. I'll be uploading it to him. His name is Ahmad, probably today or tomorrow. And so we'll see how that works. I wanted to try it out because I kind of know what I'm doing in the writing the book area now because of my first experience. But I will tell you that when I get ready to the grit book, I'm probably going to want a traditional publisher or a hybrid publisher on that piece. So I hope that answers your question.
But it also takes me to, let's see, a comment and another question. So it reminds all of us that the Global Chamber Authors Group is a great resource.
Yeah.
Everybody's willing to share. You can find everybody's contact information. So any kind of question you have as you start to write or continue to write, somebody in this group can answer your question or know somebody else in the group who will help you. So, and for those of you who haven't been here since the very beginning, know that there's a YouTube channel that has the recordings of all now probably 24 sessions, lots of opinions, lots to share, lots of resources. So thanks, Gloria. And interesting, we'll follow your journey as you go forward. And Tony, where are you? I've lost you on my screen. There you are.
I see you.
Oh my God, I thought he left.
No, I'm here.
So tell us about your publishing journey, please.
Sure, I self-published. And part of the reason was my long experience working with really big corporations as business partners, and how they used to take our services and they would mark them up, typically 100% or even 150%, and they would resell them to their customers. And I took that experience and said to myself, let me look at what publishers do. Let me look at what Amazon does. And Amazon charges about 55% royalty, not including printing and shipping. And I said, well, that sounds like what I've learned over the past 30 years at these big tech companies I do business with. And I looked at same thing with Audible. In Audible, you get, I believe, about 35% royalty. And the thought that I had was, it's my intellectual property. It's my story. It's the work that I put in. And if anybody is going to be rewarded for that at the end of the day, it needs to be me. So I went to self-publishing. I hired an editor. She cut my book down. It's 343 pages. She cut it down by about 100 pages. So I had a lot to say, as you can see. And then I went into a closet with sheets hanging down and did my own audiobook. I recorded the 10 hours of audio, and that was my audiobook. And I have an ebook as well. All three formats I did independently. So when I sell a book, I'm at least happy enough to know that the intellectual property that I have, as well as the bulk of the financial part, comes to me as the author, as opposed to giving that away to people who didn't do any work except maybe use their channel to do distribution. And it's print on demand. It's available on Amazon, but it's available in the marketplace. So they get they only get 15% fee of the book. That's it. I chose not to do Audible, again, because not just is the low royalty a problem, but you also sign away your rights to that audio version for 7 years. And again, I wanted to maintain my intellectual property. So I chose to go the independent route, the print on demand. I don't keep inventory. Someone purchases the book, it gets automatically printed and shipped to them. I don't have to touch it. And it's a harder road because you have to do a lot of marketing on your own. But if it's your material, you have the passion to talk about it, just like all of us are talking about today.
So Tony, that takes us to another question. And the question that came to mind while you were talking is, first of all, I am super impressed that you could do an audible recording for 10 hours and read your book and have it sound great. I mean, you have a terrific voice, so that's altogether a good beginning. But wow, what an undertaking. But I see your hand up, Dana, and I see your hand up, Gloria. I'll come to you in just a second. But Tony, maybe you could talk a little bit quickly about the marketing of it, since you control all those aspects. How do you make sure people know your book exists?
It's a bunch of podcasts, radio interviews, sessions like this today, friends and family. Have a landing page at the book. People can go straight to that landing page, and it's specifically for the book, and they can purchase it straight from there. The back end for all you authors is Shopify. So the checkout process is seamless. You can pay with any method that you want to pay, with Amazon, Google, any of that. So I make it extremely easy for the customers to buy however they are comfortable purchasing any product on earth today. But the marketing is just really getting out in front of as many people as possible. I do webinars, my own webinars. There is a link from the webinars to be able to get into my ecosystem, so to speak, where the book is available. But it's really just connecting with people. And again, that's part of, I think what Joe mentioned was absolutely correct. It's part of the passion of writing a book, which is you want to talk about the content. So it's very, very easy to do when you have the opportunity to do so.
Okay, that's great. I'm going to go to Dana because we haven't heard boo from you today so far, and I know you have a lot to share. So Dana, the floor is yours. And we only have about another 5 minutes. So
okay, I'll take 60 seconds of it. First of all, just congratulations. Glad to hear from each and every one of you. Your story, your process, your marketing. As a writer's coach that helps writers get their books done in 90 days, I was really excited to see what your motivation was, because that's always the first thing. Why are you doing what you're doing? And just starting with Tony, kind of going backwards to Joe, your why was for you, which made it personal. But when it's personal, it's also relatable to people who've gone through that similar journey. And that's why your book resonates. I have other questions for you, Tony, but you're right here, so I'll call you at another time. And then Gloria, you know, you're just amazing to me on how you pull your life stories, your protocol experience, your leadership and your training together, and then now into a journal. I'm excited. So congratulations to you for that. And I have a book coming out this month too. It's a writer's journal to help writers write. So maybe we'll introduce that, Lainey, at a maybe next month if we have one. And then Joe, I heard you talk about collaboration for your books. And this is something that I've kind of thrown out there loosely to Gloria and Lainey, and I haven't really pursued it, only because I just need to lighten my load a little bit, but this is something in the new year I'm hoping that we can do. But one thing I'm really excited to share, and I've never shared it in this group until today, when I help our writers become authors, they're utilizing a tool called Blooksy that was rolled out at our writers conference in Puerto Rico last year. And yes, Puerto Rico is my next favorite place to Bermuda. So any opportunity to go there, to write there, to just be. I'm usually in the being, except for at the conference. Tony, I'm not in the being mode, I'm in the doing mode. I got to work that out. But in terms of collaboration, Blooksy allows you, first of all, to text your book. It also utilizes artificial intelligence. This is a game changer, guys. And you can collaborate, because one of my writers was doing a book with someone. She was actually in Trinidad, but she lived in the US. She wanted to do it with someone in South Africa and also in Uganda. So 3 authors. She would write, and all she has to do within Blooksy is say share and put the email of whom to share, and they can either review or edit or comment. It's a game changer. I put the link in the chat. I'm excited for what's going on right here. We've got some great writers. Dwayne, he's the leader. I think he's written the most, I think, you and Lainey. But we can learn from everybody's experience. And I'm certainly here as a resource. And I was going to suggest what you talked about, Gloria, which is traditional, hybrid, and then self-publish. And there's benefits to all. If time is a constraint, self-publish. All right.
Okay, thanks very much, Dana. It's always good to have you weigh in, and you always know something interesting to share with us. But we are about up on our time, and I want
Lainey, I just want to say one thing. I don't mean, because I don't want to forget this. When you are looking into publishing, one of the things I learned, especially if you're going to do on-demand or self-publishing with like Amazon, you also want to be uploaded to something called Ingram, because Ingram is who gets you into the bookstores.
good to know. Good
Okay.
piece of advice. Thank you. And Gloria, I'm actually going to toss the ball to you now to talk about December, because we're up against the end of our time. So everybody needs to know about what you have planned for December. So if you and Doug want to talk about that for a minute, that would be great.
Okay, my part of December, and then Doug's going to give you his part or his vision for 2023 is, I mean, instead of having authors speak about their works, we want the author to speak about somebody else's works, you know? And so far I have read all these books from our community. You can see them there. And I will be sharing with you, as time allows, what I really took away from each one, probably about 30-second in each one, or I'll pick 2 or 3. But I encourage you to read another author's material book, find something about it that just really hit the note for you, something that you would, put on Amazon or something, and share it with us. So we want that to be a very sharing and supportive session for the authors. I did a lot of ums just now. And so I'm going to turn it over to Doug now, so I don't do any more ums.
Hey, no, that sounds great, Gloria. And all. So you said about 2023. I think I really just I don't think I have anything really enlightening to share, other than I'm looking forward to the December event, and would love to continue these conversations and continue to grow the community and inspire the community so that we can keep moving. And so find ways as writers within Global Chamber, book authors come out with their books, that we support them as much as we can. We read them, we review them, we do whatever it takes to help support them through the process and then beyond to the next. So thank you all for really inspiring stories. I'm going to jump off to the Global Chamber Chicago, Milwaukee meetup that starts about a minute from now on a different Zoom line. So it's not like, you can go a little bit over on this one. It's not a problem. I do want to finally say at the last moment is, of the 3 authors, you're all amazing in your own different ways, and it was great to learn more about all 3 of you. I happen to know a little bit more about Joe than others, because I remember when he came to Phoenix, it was before he found that business. And he was just kind of looking for something that was really nifty and good. And to watch him then find that business, BEM, the mapping business, and then to really embrace it and to put his brain around it, and to find Don, who is so good at it, and then learn so much about it, and then write a book about it. I think that really goes to that everybody's got a book inside. Everybody has something to share. Everybody has the ability to do it. Not everybody does it. and I think that's really why we want to continue this, is to continually inspire people, because everybody who's a member of Global Chamber can do it. It's just a matter of, can we inspire them? Can we continue to tell the stories of you successful authors to keep more people in the flow of it? So thank you, Lainey. Thank you all of the speakers today. You're amazing. I'm going to jump off now, and feel free to continue as long as you'd like.
Thanks, Doug. Thanks very much, Doug. Thanks for being here and inspiring all of us. And I want to thank Joe and Tony and Gloria and Dana for all your generous sharing today. And Charles, we look forward to your book when you're ready to launch it. You know where to come.
Thank you.
And I want to just say one more time, thank you very much to all of you, and look forward to sharing the screens with you again and talking about books again. So Joe, Tony, Gloria, thank you for being our featured presenters today, and look forward to seeing you again, hopefully next month when we celebrate all the Global Chamber authors. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
folks.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.